Раз, два. Раз, два. Раз. Раз. Ну, у тебя флором идет он. Раз. Раз. Я дублирую звук.
Английский канал, говорит переводчик.
Раз. Раз, два, три. Еще раз. Раз, два, три, четыре, пять. Раз. Раз. Чек. Чек, чек. Один, два, три. Один, два, три. Чек, чек. Раз, два, три. Еще раз. Раз, два, три. Раз, два, три. Раз, два, три. Раз, два, три.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, should we start in a few seconds? If we get seated and comfortable, we can start. Okay. Excellencies, distinguished ministers, colleagues, friends. My name is Thomas Eriksson. I'm the Regional Director for the Green Climate Fund for Central Asia, Eastern Europe, and Middle East. It's a real privilege to convene this roundtable of ministers on climate investment pathways in Central Asia at such a pivotal moment for the region, and it's such an excellent event organized by Kazakhstan. Before I start with the actual session, I will just give a brief overview how this session will run. We will have four segments. The first one will be short opening statements from the co-organizers, so from the government of Kazakhstan, from UNDP, and from myself. This will be followed by a ministerial dialogue on national climate investment priorities, which I will moderate. The next segment will then focus on economic perspectives and outlooks. What are the green investment opportunities that also delivers economic growth? This will be moderated by Dr. Ma Jun, president of the Beijing-based Institute for Finance and Sustainability. And Dr. Ma will also then moderate the last segment on financing opportunities with development banks and climate funds. We will then conclude the session after that. I'd just also like to tell you in advance that there will be a group photo at some point around 3:15, after which ministers will need to depart. So there will be a little bit of coming and going. So I apologize in advance for that. And also myself will have to exit briefly at that time to do a signing event. So really apologize in advance that there will be a little bit of coming and going at that point. But without further ado, let's start with the opening remarks from the co-organizers of this session, Government of Kazakhstan, UNDP, and Green Climate Fund. So first of all, it's my real honor and pleasure to give the floor to Yerlan Nisambayev, Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources of the Republic of Kazakhstan, for his opening remarks.
Спасибо.
Thank you so much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues. I am glad to greet all of you here at this session that is dedicated to the investment pathway, climate investment pathway in Central Asia. Central Asia is the region that is most vulnerable, and we know that there are changes in different structures, and climate risks now form limitations. In response to these challenges, countries shall follow their commitments. Kazakhstan, for example, has its own strategy for net zero emissions. Updated NDC provides the reduction of greenhouse gases for 17% by 2030 from the level of 1990s. However, transition from these commitments to practical implementations required a specific system of projects, efficient interaction with different institutions. That's why the issue of climate financing is a priority nowadays. During COP30, Kazakhstan said that it would build specific platform for climate financing. It's an important step for creating a unified mechanisms of selection, accompanying, and implementation of climate projects. Such projects are distributed between different state bodies and financial institutions, and thus it makes difficult to coordinate all projects and sometimes reduce investment attractiveness. But when we create a unified platform, we will be able to overcome these challenges. This platform will be a practical tool that will enable us to build the whole process from the primary selection of the project up to the investment proposal preparation. At the same time, Kazakhstan has its own country program for Green Climate Fund for the period 2025 till 2027. This program defines climate financing need in about $1 billion for implementation of climate projects. Last year in Kazakhstan, Development Bank of Kazakhstan was accredited by Green Climate Fund for receiving direct investments. Taking into account transboundary nature of different climate challenges, we understand it is important to develop not only national approach but also regional approach. That's why our session is of applied nature nowadays. We need to discuss our priorities, our mechanisms of coordinations between different bodies. We need to discuss tools that will enable us to implement all these climate initiatives in practice. Joint initiatives are very important and critical, and all together we try to resolve common issues. For example, we have the program From Glaciers to Farms. We speak about adaptation measures with regard to glaciers melting. We speak about water territories. And of course, we expect that this session will give the sustainable foundation for further projects and will be efficient for all Central Asian region. So I wish fruitful work today within this summit to all of you. Thank you.
Minister, really good points, I think, on bringing up the thinking around unified platforms, around access to climate finance and direct access to climate finance for countries, as well as taking regional approaches on transboundary issues. Really, really good points. Thank you so much for those remarks. I'm now very pleased to invite, actually, my former boss as well, Hao Liangshuo, United Nations Secretary General, Associate Administrator of UNDP, to give his opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Nazarbayev, Minister of Environment of Kazakhstan, Thomas, our friend, and Excellencies, distinguished colleagues and friends. It is a privilege to join you today alongside our partners from the Green Climate Fund. Our response to the interconnected challenges of climate change, environmental degradation, poverty, and inequality requires a fundamental shift. We're not just discussing environmental protection. We are discussing the economic architecture of the future. Achieving the Paris Agreement goals will require trillions of dollars in annual investment globally through 2050. While vast, this figure also represents one of the greatest opportunities of our time for innovation, for green jobs, and for sustainable economic growth. Moving from ambition to investment requires overcoming critical bottlenecks. Across the region, green projects face persistent barriers. The perception of high risk, which drives up capital costs, the lack of long-term affordable financing, the absence of horizontal harmonized definitions, which creates market confusion, and insufficient environmental, social, and governance disclosure alongside other market distortions. These challenges require structural market shifts and collective effort. Central Asia is already making clear progress in developing its green finance market. The next step is to scale up. This will require adopting harmonized green taxonomies, drawing on models like the EU Sustainable Finance Taxonomy, China's Green Catalog, or the frameworks adopted by multilateral development banks, while also implementing concrete de-risking measures and enhancing ESG disclosure frameworks. Here in the region, UNDP's active climate and green finance portfolio in grant financing is a powerful example of blended finance in action. In Kazakhstan, we are leveraging over $10 for every dollar of grant assistance invested in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and ecosystem restoration. UNDP has also helped pilot a toolbox of non-grant instruments, including concessional finance, loan guarantees, and green bonds, to develop bankable green investments. This has successfully mobilized private capital for small enterprises and helped launch a green financial market which now exceeds $2 billion. Many of our most acute challenges do not respect borders, right? And so this is also something that we need to deal with, because the individual national efforts alone, is not sufficient, right? Whether in managing shared river basins, preserving transboundary ecosystems, or securing regional energy grids. So therefore, our financial solutions must also increasingly be regional. For regional policymakers and the funding agencies, a regional approach could fundamentally change how we finance development. Instead of fragmented national requests, we could build a pipeline of cross-border investments. We could proactively finance the prevention of water and energy deficits. Instead of treating climate action as a cost, we could integrate environmental objectives with the real economy benefits, proving that cooperative green investments are a direct catalyst for GDP growth. By providing a space for advanced project structuring and technical assistance, a shared regional platform could translate our common climate priorities into de-risked value opportunities for GCF, IFIs, and the private sector. Excellencies, the global financing landscape is affected by crisis and fragility risks. The challenges we face are complex, but your climate ambition exemplifies Central Asia's role as a champion and a driving force. It shows that solutions are within our reach when countries and the development partners come together with a shared vision. Today's discussion is not just about identifying funding gaps. It is about shaping a new investment culture, one where regional cooperation secures long-term prosperity. Let us use this session to move decisively towards just investment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hao-Liang, and I think very good points on interconnectedness of the challenge, cross sectors, cross government, private, public, and also the regional aspects that comes also in the interconnectedness, of course. And also looking at the opportunities of climate change and tackling them through the solutions that we know exist, and also highlighting the role of blended finance in a way towards this end. But thank you so much. With your indulgence, I will also give very short opening remarks from the Green Climate Fund side, and then we will go into the roundtable. Central Asia is now entering a decisive decade. Climate impacts, glacier retreat, water stress, infrastructure vulnerability are no longer risks, distant risks. They are already shaping fiscal stability, they are shaping economic growth, and they are shaping regional cooperation. At the same time, countries across the region have demonstrated strong leadership. We see updated national commitments on climate expressed in the NDCs, that provide a solid foundation. The question is now, how do we move from these commitments to implementation, from ambition to investments, and do so at scale? From our perspective with the Green Climate Fund, this is really where partnerships is critical. Our role is to help translate these national priorities into bankable investment pipelines through our readiness support, through project preparation support, and through concessional blended finance that can also facilitate crowding in private capital. Opportunities are clear: climate resilient water systems, renewable energy, modernized grids, resilient infrastructure, sustainable land use, food security, more livable climate resilient cities. Many of these, as we have heard, are inherently regional challenges, require strong coordination across the region and collective approaches. And with this ministerial team in this region, I think we have a very strong foundation for that. Progress will depend on three things in my mind, and I think we've heard some colleagues say it already, right? Clear and prioritized pipelines, strong coordination, particularly between finance and sector ministries, and third, platforms that can mobilize public and private investments at scale. Today's discussion is therefore essential. It's about aligning efforts, accelerating delivery, and shaping investments that will define Central Asia's climate and economic future. From the Green Climate Fund, we are ready, of course, to be the partner of choice in this effort in the region. Thank you so much. So with that, I'll thank the speakers for their opening remarks. And let's move into the second segment, the ministerial dialogue on national climate investment priorities, which I will also try to moderate here. I'm very pleased to introduce Yerlan Asambayev again, Minister in Kazakhstan, Akhil Toktubayev, Minister in Kyrgyzstan, Ovej Geldi Goshanov from Turkmenistan, and I think you are standing in, Timur is standing in for Aziz Abdukhaminov, who might come in later during this process. So first of all, let me start with a question to Kazakhstan. And it would be very good, Minister, if you will outline from your perspective, what are really your priorities in the coming year or so? What are you really moving forward with, and what is the support you need to reach this? Over to you.
Thank you. The question is really obvious, or the answer is really obvious. What we want in the upcoming time. Each country defined its own priorities, and now the main issue is raised, and this issue is about financing. I think that we all understand this financing issue. Speakers who were performing at other panel sessions, they said that now it's time to move to practical realities. Each country has its own plans, roadmaps, scheduled mechanisms, projects. But unfortunately, nowadays, countries that took the commitments, international commitments, I speak about nationally determined contributions and objectives. The government provides their funds, private companies supports. However, this money is not enough. Let's take Kazakhstan, for example. We received a very devastating infrastructure, or the heritage infrastructure, like outdated infrastructure. The volume of investments that is required for us to reach carbon neutrality by 2060 presents a big amount. Let me say, it's 600 billion USD. And of course, here, without external financing, without other fund sources from international organizations or banks, or from support from other states or funds, without this support, it would be difficult to reach our indicators. However, the life is going on, and each country actively engages now with all financial organizations. For example, speaking about Green Climate Fund, we have formed a pipeline of projects for almost 1 billion, and we want to implement all the projects. So the priority and the main issue now is money. Without financing, without funds, all the things that we say would have a declarative nature. So now this is the right time to think how to implement it. Many words were said about facilitating in having these grants and so on. Well, now the big work is about financing. The internal problems are clear to everyone. For example, in Kazakhstan, we want to reduce greenhouse gases in energy sector, because energy sector is a main industry now that is polluting our environment. But on the other hand, we understand, yes, that energy requires full modernization now. Our power plants now have been working for 50, 60 years, and of course we need to modernize them, and for this we need funds. That's why I think we shall now work on financing, and once again financing. If in the nearest time we do not see the real progress, I guess it would be not comfortable for us to be together again. That's it from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister. If I heard you right, you talked about financing. I heard that you expressed very clearly you have ambitions, you have priorities, you have pipeline, and what you're looking for is the right financial models. Thank you so much, Minister. If I turn to Kyrgyzstan, Minister, how do you look at working across the government? How do you bring the whole of government together in terms of translating your climate plans into financed investments? And how do you do that coordination? Over to you.
In Kyrgyz Republic, when regarding all of the climate plans, financial investments are planned through the interdisciplinary approach. We have the council, controlling body that identifies the priorities, the initiatives, and Ministry of Finances layouts all of the budgeting, planning, in budget planning, investment, international partnerships, collaborations, strategic coordination between all of the authorities are implemented through the Ministry of Ecology. They're responsible for the development of economy in regards to the climate change. And on this platform, all of the national priorities are agreed upon, investment decisions through the intersectory approach. In Kyrgyz Republic, we have the climate plans. So we're looking at the implementation of the sustainable development of the economy.
No, thank you so much for that, and to outline how you work on terms of climate planning and how you translate that into implementation. Can I turn to Turkmenistan? Minister, if you can give your view in Turkmenistan, how you look at climate finance and how it fits in your national development agenda. Over to you, Minister.
Allow me to sincerely express my immense gratitude for organization of this platform to the Republic of Kazakhstan, government of the Republic of Kazakhstan, and the Ministry of Ecology and National Resources, and all of the partners, the UNDP, for conducting this very important meeting. Turkmenistan highlights all of the priorities for the sustainable development, especially the climate change, by the Berdimuhamedov, as well as the national leader, Chairman Halkmastaradi, Turkmeni hero, Arkada Guran Berdimuhamedov. We implement the policy for the development of the rational use development of the collaboration as well as the continuation of all of the objectives that had been highlighted during this meeting. So for Turkmenistan, priority is development of the projects, pipeline of the projects for preventing number of the challenges and for formation of climate project portfolio, including adaptation, monitoring, sustainable development of natural resources. In this regards, we rely on the international partnership and collaboration in preparation of the pipeline of the projects for development of potential of the initiatives for the region in the whole. We are committed for the interaction, collaboration, and advancement of the concrete investment, climate investment initiatives. Thank you so much for your attention.
For highlighting the need and the focus on pipeline projects and that will then target strengthening the resilience and strengthening the ability of Turkmenistan to tackle climate change. I will now hand to, as the last speaker, to Uzbekistan. In the minister's place, Timur here will take this floor. Can you talk a little bit about the kind of the capacities you need, the regional capacities, the initiatives and the partnerships and platforms that you think needs to be developed to ensure that climate finance translate to bankable projects? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you so much. I think in addition to what Excellencies mentioned above, which also applies to the Republic of Uzbekistan, I wanted to emphasize that, as we all know, the climate change does not know borders, and which makes regional cooperation an essential part of this dialogue. And the desertification and the bad air quality affect much of the Central Asia. Land degradation, desertification, and drought are no longer short-term risks. They are also long-term, and they are intensifying pressure. For Uzbekistan, this is not a future scenario, but a current development challenge with direct effects on livelihoods, agriculture productivity, climate resilience, migration risks. According to scientific assessment, around 9 square meters of land in Uzbekistan degrade every minute. In this regard, a practical regional program could be a Central Asian climate resilience and desert economy initiative, combining regional early warning systems that were mentioned above for dust and sandstorms and coordinated action on combating desertification. The desert economy concept could focus on drought-resistant crops, including halophytes, climate-resilient livelihoods, nature-based solutions. Such approach would help align policies, attract targeted investment, and unlock the economic potential of drylands while maintaining ecological sustainability. The presidents of the Republic of Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan have recently established the Clean Air Interstate Consortium, a major step to address transboundary air pollution in Central Asia. Given the GCF's leadership in regional green growth, we propose aligning the consortium projects with the investment priorities and financial instruments. The consortium will focus on 5 integrated areas: industrial transition, ecosystem restoration, joint monitoring and control systems, science, and green finance. It is designed to combine technical, environmental, scientific, and investment solutions to reduce emissions, prevent dust storms, strengthen regional environmental security. In this regard, it is essential to build regional scientific capacity as well, bringing together research centers, hydrometeorological services, universities, sectoral institutes to work jointly on land degradation matters, water stress, drought, dust and sunstorms, and ecosystem resilience. Such partnership should support not only knowledge exchange, but also applied solutions that can be scaled through climate finance. We're already advancing this model through Green University, which is being developed as an integrated platform for science, education, and applied ecology. We already have 4 major research institutes and more than 14 technical colleges and several dendroparks that are focusing on research, testing nature-based solutions for climate adaptation and combating desertification. Dear delegates, we see strong value in development of Central Asian Green University as a platform for green skills, innovation, and applied climate knowledge. Within this framework, initiatives such as Shared Vision on Desert Economy, Halifites, Yashil Makan greening programs on afforestation, Cryosphere Research Center that would focus on glaciers, and other specialized trainings and research platforms could make an important contribution. At the same time, the region needs stronger technological platforms, including climate, land, and water monitoring systems, remote sensing, early warning, geoanalytics, and project preparation tools. These platforms are essential for turning climate risk into measurable data and data into bankable projects. Without a strong scientific base and modern technological platforms, climate finance will remain fragmented. Central Asia needs durable institutional mechanisms to support adaptation, desertification response, and long-term climate project implementation. Dear colleagues, dear delegates, dear participants, I would like to emphasize the role of the Samarkand in this regard as a regional platform for cooperation, knowledge exchange, and climate dialogue. And using this opportunity, I would also like to invite all colleagues to the 8th JEF Assembly and the Eco Expo Central Asia that will be happening in the end of May of 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Timur, for stepping in, and thank you so much for highlighting Uzbekistan's priorities, policies, areas of opportunities for investment, your priorities, but also the importance of knowledge, science, and at all levels, international, national, and local, but to focus on applied science and applied technologies. So really good points. Thank you so much. And I'd like to thank all the ministers and colleagues from the different countries for your insights and leadership. Very generous of you to share them with us here. And it's obvious to all of us, right? I heard that while there are national frameworks, there are strategies in place, the key challenge is now to really convert them into bankable projects, scalable investment programs, and of course to get the financing for these programs. I think all ministers outscored the importance of aligning objectives with fiscal frameworks and ongoing reforms. And also finally, I thank the government, of course, of Kazakhstan for hosting us, for organizing this discussion, and for all the participants for these very constructive contributions. Thank you so much, everyone. As I mentioned, I have to step out very briefly, but I will be back as well. But let me hand over to Dr. Majun, President of the Beijing-based Institute again, for Finance and Sustainability, for moderation of the next segment. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, good afternoon. I was invited by UNDP to moderate. In fact, it used to be 2 sessions. I think we're now combining into 1 session of 8 or 9 speakers. So each of us will be given a fairly brief time slot. Now, let me just say a few words based on my personal experience of working on green finance in China and globally. In terms of what I see as the important pillars for raising money or scaling green climate finance for developing country emerging markets. I think number 1 is, as the minister said earlier, international finance. I think said like 3 or 4 times, international finance, international finance, international finance. That's definitely very important for countries in Central Asia. And we have many of them today. So we'll be elaborating on how they, as development banks, international organizations and funds will be helping Central Asia to provide the necessary funding, the concessional money, as well as TA support. But the second pillar, which I want to emphasize a little bit more, is domestic green finance. In fact, the majority of developing countries, they have not fully established their domestic green financial system. And based on the numbers I collected from a couple of emerging market economies which have defined green finance using taxonomy and collected the statistics on how much green loans and bonds have been offered, it's about 3% only. which means that the domestic financial system only allocates 3% of their loans and bonds to green projects, and the other 97% are not. The potential is massive, and the China experience, which I was fully involved in creating as I was leading the drafting of the China Green Financial Policy back 12 years ago, and now we have the banking system in China allocating 17% of total outstanding loans to green projects. And if you can scale up the percentage of your green loan ratio by 5 times, right, from 3 to 17, I think a huge amount of money that's coming in for green and sustainable projects within your economy. And for that to work, you need to have a few things. Number one, you need to have a taxonomy to define clearly what green activities are, right? And taxonomy has to be interoperable, especially for small economies. You cannot do too many of these little taxonomy which are different from others in order to have cross-border transactions. And these taxonomies need to look alike. And maybe you can consider the common ground taxonomy, which I helped the drafting between China and Europe as a basis for reference, your taxonomy. And the second key pillar is disclosure requirements. You need to make sure that all your green projects will deliver the green benefits, whether it's carbon reduction or reduction of pollutions and protecting nature and so on. They need to be quantified, they need to be disclosed, and eventually be consistent with ISSB. But in the early days, it could be simpler. So these are the two very basic elements of a green financial system domestically. And my third point is bankability of projects. A lot of us have been saying, we need to generate more bankable projects. But a critical element of that is you need affordable green technologies. If technologies are so expensive, you will not have bankable projects. And here, in fact, I was talking to Ali just right after this. I'm setting up a green accelerator, which will help the global green technologies, appropriate technologies, to go to developing country, emerging market, to scale up operation on a larger scale. And just give you 1 or 2 examples. One is China now has a technology to convert desert into arable land within 3 months. And you can then plant things and grow agricultural products and sell them and become a bankable projects. So desert restoration become bankable. Secondly, the Chinese technology using sonic to enhance rainfall by 30%, which will sequentially improve your agricultural productivity by just creating rain for you, right? All these technologies can get a payback period of only 3 years. So these are the type of technology I think we need to really look into the application in Central Asia. And finally, we need incentives, not just the international incentive, cheaper money, concessional de-risking, but also domestically. If the government within the Central Asian economy can allocate a little bit of subsidies for interest payments, the central bank can twist their regulatory framework to lower the risk weights for green lending. And some of the de-risking provided by domestic financial institutions, I think we can channel or mobilize a lot more domestic financing towards the green activities. So these are my sort of a little opening remark to really induce some more insightful discussions from our panelists. Now let me start by inviting 3 deputy ministers from the region. Can I invite Mr. Asan Dabayev, who is the Vice Minister of National Economy of the Republic of Kazakhstan, for your remarks.
Thank you very much, dear moderator, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for the invitation and the opportunity to speak as such a distinguished platform. It is symbolic that our discussion is taking place here at the Expo 2017 complex, where the central theme was future energy. Today, this agenda is transforming into the practical solution for attracting green investments. Kazakhstan considers green investment as one of the key drivers of economic growth and sustainable development. According to the result of 2025, we observe steady growth in investment. Fixed capital investment reached 16.5 trillion tenge, is growth more than 13%. FDI inflows amounted to around 15 billion USA dollars. Our goal is to attract at least 150 USA dollars billion in investment by 2029, including into green projects. Kazakhstan is actively developing the renewable energy sector. Action mechanism for RES project selection have been introduced. Guaranteed offtake of the electricity has been secured. The concept of the share of green electricity in the energy mix has been established. A transparent market for investor is being formed. At the same time, the new environmental code introduction, the concept of the best available techniques, and all new energy facilities are being developed in the line with BAT and environmental standards. Despite the progress, we still see a number of constraints, such as regulatory barriers, complex approval procedures, high cost of capital for the green projects, and limited grid capacity. However, the government is undertaking system effort to address these challenges. A three-tie investment attraction system has been introduced. A one-stop shop mechanism is like national company Kazakh Invest is in place, and the fast-track green corridor has been launched, reducing the key procedures to as little as 5 days. A procedural filter has been introduced to protect investor rights. A national digital investment platform is being developed, along with the creation of a unified Center Kazakhstan Investment House. In cooperation with international financial institutions, financing procedures are being simplified. Blended and concessional financial instruments are being expanded. Transparency barriers are being reduced. This work is already ongoing within the framework of the current dialogue with the partners and at the summit. For Central Asia, key priorities include the development of regional green projects, aggregation of the project to enhance the investment attractiveness, and the establishment of the unified standards and approaches. Overall, Kazakhstan is building a predictable and transparent investment environment, actively implementing an environmental standard and BAT, strengthening the cooperation with international financial institutions, and creating conditions for the scaling up green investment. We are confident that the reforms being implemented are already generating a new momentum for investment inflows, both into Kazakhstan and the region as a whole. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Minister, for outlining the priorities in Kazakhstan's green financial strategy. Now, let me invite Mr. Ikhom Nokulov, who is the first Deputy Minister of Economy and Finance from the Republic of Uzbekistan. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. First of all, I want to thank for excellent organization of this event and the hosts and the organizers of this panel session as well. Regarding the topic of this session, I wanted to highlight the importance of several factors for leveraging and supporting the investment and climate-related agenda. And it's not a question and it's not the answer that you can give in a short. It's a combination of several and important factors and the hard work. And it's not a regulatory and just a policy issue as well. Even so, the policy requires a strong policy, a strong political will, and consistency in attracting the investment and triggering the private and foreign investment and climate-related agenda. What I want to say is that looking at the results, what Uzbekistan has achieved in in this area, we can draw some lessons from our practice. In just last 5 years, just in the energy sector, we have been able to commission more than 5.5 gigawatt renewable energy projects. And just in the energy sector. And also we started to actively implement the policies in the area of the water sector, irrigation. Today we have done more than 3,000 kilometers of canals. We cemented the canals. We implemented close to 1 million hectare laser planning and implemented water-saving technologies. We issued close to $1 billion green bonds with the support of UNDP and other IFIs. We introduced water energy efficient construction materials in our public mortgage program. We introduced new technologies in the agriculture sector in terms of implementing and introducing the climate adaptive plants and seeds. We can bring a lot of examples for this. But what is behind the story? As I already mentioned, it's the combination of factors. From the first of the day, we relied very much on, together with strong political support and a visionary policy, on cooperation with international organizations. We gave a space not only to strong and big multilateral development banks, but we actively worked with institutions like UN agencies, namely UNDP and others, and the German cooperation organizations, GIZ, etc., where they could help us to coordinate the support of these strong financial institutions. And when I say consistent, is that we, just in case of the policy design, we brought from World Bank, ADB, French Agency for Development, Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank, and others, close to 1.5 billion development policy-based loans. So at the first hand, it was not money, but it was also to get the support and knowledge of a right policy design. Then we started to move on implementing this, the regulatory framework issues like the new laws, new presidential degrees, how we can do that. That helped us, to set up and implement new projects, especially in the energy sector, the PPPs. And we established a benchmark cost for PPP. It was first with participation of Masdar, ADB, and other IFIs. Then came Aqua Power, then came Total Energy, and etc. Big companies, they started to came. So I can carry on with these examples, but looking ahead, our integrated national financial framework, which we did with UNDP, is indicating that we so far more than $10 billion a year we are channeling to climate and green related agenda, but it's still less. We lack more than $6 billion, and so green and climate related agenda has to be a cross-cutting issue in every sector. We cannot, I think, today separate it and say that this is the green, this is climate, and it has to be everywhere. And there are the good news is that there are a lot of low-hanging fruits. Still, we can bring an example in case of Uzbekistan, just the water in the utility sector, that if we can compare, I think it's not only in Tashkent, but in many cities in the region, compared to European or other countries like Japan or others, where we see that the consumption of the drinking water or utility water per person in big cities is still a lot. So it is also good that we can introduce new, the water technologies, but it's also a trigger for industries that produce these kind of things. One thing I forgot to say is that, the energy efficiency in social buildings and as well, where we did already in the last 2 years more than 10,000 social buildings. We are introducing heat pumps. It's also a good trigger for production of these technologies. So we can another low-hanging fruit in case of Uzbekistan is bringing more investment in lower distribution, I mean the energy sector. We are piloting in Samarkand region, and then Turkish companies, they won the PPP project, and we are modernizing because I think in many countries, because we inherited the old system and they need a modernization, we need more investment, and this can be done with the private investment, especially in the model of PPP. So this can be a good area where we can implement in the gas distribution as well, especially many countries, I think, in the region, including Uzbekistan, that we joined the Global Methane Pledge as well. So a lot of still opportunities. It has to be cross-cutting, and if we are consistent, work based on the cooperation, and there is a good coordination and strong political will, I think in a relatively short period of time, we can see a good, successful results. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister, for elaborating some of specific investment needs in sectors such as energy, water, buildings, and so on. Now, let me now invite Mr. Senzor Makbetov, who is the chairman of the Green Finance Fund under the Ministry of Economy and Commerce of the Kyrgyz Republic.
Спасибо, господин
Thank you so much, distinguished chairman. First of all, I would like to thank organizers for gathering us together. I want to thank Kazakhstan for the traditional hospitality. Distinguished colleagues, guests, partners, ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad to greet all of you at this round table. We have gathered in a historical moment in a global transformation of global economy. The heads of states of Central Asia conducted a big work at the political level. The specific foundation was laid. In 2022, in Cholpon-Ata, the agreement was signed on friendship, on mutual relations, so that to develop Central Asia. And in November 2025, in Tashkent, it was the 7th consultative meeting of the heads of state that aimed at moving from these plans to a specific actions. Now, the key question for us is the following. Are we able to come to the economic results? I'm pretty sure that now it's time for practical actions. Since over this time, we see the economy of Central Asia shows growth. We see that here the GDP is at about 5-7%. According to the Eurasian Development Bank, in the beginning of 2026, the volume of investments between Central Asian countries increased almost 4 times if we compare with the previous years. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, if we look at the Central Asian map, you will see that Central Asia is a new geo-economic center of gravity. This region is a bridge between east and west, north and south. This is a unique geographical location that opens a historical window of opportunity for creating green transport corridors, sustainable logistics, and new logistic architecture of this continent. But at the same time, we face challenges. Climate change cannot be stopped at the customs. They do not have borders. Let me tell you one number. Kyrgyzstan generates 0.03 from greenhouse gases emissions. However, we are in a very vulnerable positions. Over the last 10 years, the area of Tian Shan glaciers decreased by more than 16%. According to estimates, we can lose almost half of our glacier reserves. And of course, here, green financing is a main driver of our work. Global context shows the scale of opportunities. According to international research, the volume of climate financing is about 1.3 trillion USD annually. It means that green economy is not just an issue now, it's the basis of the global growth. But at the same time, we see also challenges. In Asia, the deficit of climate financing is about $800 million. And now, again, the question is who has the right to these investments, to these technologies and opportunities? Kyrgyz Republic considers green financing as a strategic tool of economy transformation. It's not only about environment, ecology. We speak about new sectors, new jobs, new competitiveness. At the same time, we shall speak about barriers. The world now sees the boom in green technologies. However, we also see the upcoming gaps. Innovations for saving climate shall not be just the privilege for rich countries. We encourage developed countries to take this role and to provide this transfer of green technologies and provide investments to the developing countries. This is not the issue of charity. This is the issue of global nature. Kyrgyz Republic suggests to implement 3 practical initiatives. First of all, we need to create a regional platform of green investments. This tool would allow to de-risk, to unite capital of private funds and other parties so that to implement transboundary projects. We need to launch clean energy projects. For example, we have the specific power plant that provides energy and water stability to the whole region. And the third initiative, as the President of Kyrgyz Republic emphasized, we want to see external financing in this green area. Hundreds of millions of dollars shall be sent for saving ecosystem and for green mechanisms. Distinguished colleagues, dear Chairman, as it was already said before, Kyrgyz Republic has also adopted its own strategic document up to 2030 about decreasing a reduction of about achieving carbon neutrality. We have a green economy program. The government, like in China, we also have green taxonomy through the Ministry of Economy. The Ministry of Finances also presented green labeling. We have specific budget for different projects like this, and there will be ESG standards implementing. In 2024, UNDP conducted research where we defined the annual needs, or we actually identified that the annual needs increased. We see some gaps in budget. We see the financial gap in about 65-75%, and we need to resolve the issues related with the financial resources. And our green financing fund was created, and we want to initiate some other mechanisms. we will work and we will resolve the issues of green climate financing. Thank you so much for your attention. And in conclusion, I just would like to say the following philosophical moments. Our neighboring country said that we need to form the specific community. We need to have the shared vision, and climate financing is a fundamental issue. We can do a lot together. Thank you so much.
You mentioned setting up this regional platform for green investment, which is very interesting. I had a similar example in China back nearly 10 years ago when I was setting up a regional pilot program in a city called Huzhou, and they began to work on a green finance platform. And this platform was really a database of all the green projects, as qualified green projects with the same label, which is based on taxonomy. Once the taxonomy-aligned projects is put into the database, and they immediately inform all the banks. 20-something banks get a notice, see, this project is available. You guys compete for the project. So the matching of money with project takes 1.5 days. Instead of taking 3 months for bank to look for project, 1.5 days, they got matched. This is a type of platform I think you may want to consider as a reference. Great. Now let's move on to the last part of the session, which is discussion around how financial institutions will be helping contributing to green investment in Central Asia. And given the time constraint, I think I was alerted that everybody has only about 3-4 minutes. Sorry for that. So let me call upon Mr. Ozan, who is Managing Director of Central Asia and Mongolia European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, to talk about your view on your organization's green investment plan in the region.
Thank you, Dr. Mahjun. It's great to see you, a lot of friends around the table. Wonderful to see you all, and big congratulations to Kazakhstan for this excellent organization, and of course GCF and UNDP for their particular work and participation, for bringing all of us here around the table. Okay, you have set a goal that is very hard to achieve, 4 minutes of expanding financing, and that's exactly the one item that has been underscored and emphasized by all as the biggest roadblock and the biggest need to achieve financing. But I will try my best. So let me try to give a little bit of an explanation of what EBRD is trying to do. I think that's a great way of explaining how the financing can be matched with the projects. 1.5 days, I have not seen that in my life, but it's an amazing, amazing point. 1.5 days matching a project with the financing is, I think, must be a world record. Now, Central Asia and Mongolia, our region consisting of 6 countries, is one of our core regions for the EBRD. And over the past 5 years, I have to say that about 11-12% of overall EBRD financing is actually channeled to this region, which shows the importance of the region. It's an anchor for us and a legacy region for us. Nearly 21 billion euros of investments in about 1,260 projects were financed since inception of our activities across Central Asia, and we're trying to grow that. Last year alone, 1.7 billion euros of investment we have provided, and another 650 million came with mobilization. So the total impact, total financing of 2.4 billion in the region. And 56% of these investments, these financings, were on the green side. Looking at Ilhom here, Uzbekistan led the overall annual investment, followed by Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and the other countries. But overall, 2.4 billion euros of investment is quite important. And we promised our shareholders that half of it goes to, minimum half of it goes to green projects. So how do we accelerate green transition? How do we accelerate green financing? So we look at it in a holistic manner. So financing is on one part of it. And of course, the projects we are a project financing institution, and we focus on the private sector predominantly. Of course, each and every project needs to be bankable. That's a given. So we put that aside. But we look at it in a holistic manner. How do we look at it in this holistic, systemic manner? First, at the national level, we work very closely with relevant authorities on things like long-term decarbonization strategies, on electricity market reforms. Mr. Darbayev here mentioned the auction mechanisms. We worked very closely with Ministry of Energy to build that auction mechanism system. Now, this year, we're adding the battery storage into the auction mechanism systems as well. And then development of bankable frameworks for renewables as well. And again, I'm looking at Uzbekistan here. It's a great example of how to mobilize private sector into the system. And I think the same is accelerating now with Kazakhstan as well. And you know, tomorrow we have a little bit of a surprise on that as well. Now, that's the national level. We look at it at the municipal level, at the city level as well. We have a Green Cities program where we try to reach out each green city, come up with the green city action plans and the priority projects. And then we prepare with the likes of you know, GCF support on the grant side, with the concessional financing to finance these projects. And then we look at it at the company level. Company level also divides into two. One, at the bank level. So we provide financing to the likes of the systemic banks in those countries to be on land to green projects. We do that in all of the countries that in Central Asia and Mongolia region. And then we look at it on an actual company level. So large companies, their decarbonization policies, their green projects, how to make it more bankable, etc. So overall, this holistic approach, systemic approach, mixing and combining the technical cooperation with the government authorities, with the financial institutions, commercial financial institutions on the domestic side, as well as the IFIs, provides the relevant financing to the green projects. Is it enough? No. What needs to be done to further engage this? Commercialization of energy projects, commercialization of infrastructure projects are going to be the key going forward. And we need to also make use of the domestic financial institutions, as specifically pointed out by Dr. Ma here, is going to be quite important. So more of these, more of the banks that are going to get involved in the green financing, together with the taxonomy, will increase. So IFIs, technical cooperation, policy engagement, combined with local financing, and all of it together, it's going to create the relevant supply basis for the financing. I have a lot more to say, but I know I'm way over time, so I will leave it here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Uzan. Just one of the points I really appreciate is this on-lending operation, which you lend to local banks. And in the process, I think you're really catalyzing a lot of local green financing and enhancing their capability. So I'm hoping these operations can be expanded further.
If you allow me, I want to add one more sentence on that one. Local bank engagement is extremely important, but again, on that side, you need to engage with the regulators,
Exactly.
with the central banks, with the local regulators of the banking associations, etc., to be able to implement TCFD, for example, on the reporting side, and other relevant legislation to basically support the banking system as well, and that will, you know, change this, bring the systemic change. Thank you very much.
This gets very interesting. Let me jump in for one more remark. With in some countries, you go straight to a central bank, they listen to you, it's working very well. In other countries, it doesn't work, and you have to go through the commercial bank because you feel the benefits of having the on-lending, then they will convince the central bank for you.
Absolutely.
Great. Now let's move on to our second speaker, Mr. Ali Khan, who is the head of the Regional Hub of Islamic Development Bank in Almaty.
Thank you very much. In fact, I'm as concerned as Hassan is about the time, so I'm going to put my mobile out just to make sure I'm not too long. So I would try to stick to hopefully 5 minutes. First, I think most of the colleagues who are sitting around the room, they know about ISDB, but perhaps the audience, they may not be aware. We are also a development bank similar to all the other MDBs with 57 member countries. We have been operating since 1975 and have a membership of 57 member countries now. I don't have off my head the numbers for Central Asia like Hussain mentioned, but broadly, during all these years, we have financed development initiatives worth nearly 200 billion up till now. So the impact of the bank is huge, and we comprise of 5 entities. So we are working in various segments of how the financing is mobilized for the various development initiatives. And now coming to the topic itself, and we had extensive discussions with Cassia, who has been very grateful to set up this panel. And after listening to all the various esteemed government colleagues today as well, I think what I came to realize, and I was taking down the notes, that perhaps the problem that we are discussing is not an ambition problem. We heard about wonderful plans. We heard about even some of the pipeline projects that the countries have. We heard about even the technology, which was really good. So the technology is present as well. We heard even about some of the platforms which the country is initiating. I think, so the elements are in place. I think the question for us today is, how do we do them in the right manner? So all the climate finance which is available, only 3% is being used, as you said. So there is huge money which is down there. How can you bring it to these projects? And here, again, based on the discussion that was happening, I took note of perhaps 4 or 5 things, which some of the colleagues have already mentioned, and especially GCF mentioned it in the beginning, along with the UNDP Under-Secretary. One is looking at these issues in the Central Asia at an aggregate level, looking at them at a regional level. The resources are shared. So we have to perhaps talk about the financing at a shared level as well. And I'm very glad that, in fact, some of the recent developments in this region, we have seen governments come together for financing some of the projects which may be national, but they have a regional dimension to them. So that is also happening. Second thing I think which has been emphasized significantly is the partnerships. I think a lot of stuff that I would talk about, I would be mentioning the partners. We have the GPE sitting here. We have the UNDP we are working with. So that is very important. The third thing is, I think, the concessionality of that financing. We have the financing available, but as the government said, is it concessional enough to finance some of the projects which may not be bankable? And perhaps the last thing which I would mention is the sharing of the knowledge. Most of the climate projects, even when they are operationalized at the national level, they have a dimension which can be replicated to other countries very easily. So what can we as MDBs do on that front? So I would quickly talk about these 4 or 5 things in the remaining 2 minutes I have. The first is really on the aggregation. And I think this is where the MDBs can really play a very major role, given their convening power, given the scale of funding that they have. And we have good examples. We have the example of, I think, the famous CASA project. MDBs came together on that with the government, and we were able to do that. We have, I would want to talk about even a different kind of a regional project, the regional green education we are doing with the GPE. It's an individual project in each country, very similar in nature, advancing the greening of the education sector. Now, very recently, last year with Kazakhstan, we did a mega $1 billion water resources project. But we have similar examples in Uzbekistan that we are doing. We drew lessons from what Uzbekistan has done well in designing this project. So I think that is an important area where MDBs can really come in and provide the financing. The second one is really looking at some of these issues from the development of the pipelines. MDBs, they hold significant funding as a group to develop some of these projects and support the government in that initial phase. The bank, we have been working with MCDF, AIIB to develop a Central Asia Connectivity Initiative where we identified a list of pipeline projects, and now we are transforming them into bankable feasibility studies. So we have examples where we have played a role in that. Hussain mentioned about the renewable energy, same working with Uzbekistan. We have done an analysis, again taking a regional lens to it, but then determining national investments that we can do to support the country as well. So I think that's a second area in terms of the pipeline development work that ISDB is doing and what MDBs can really contribute in addressing the issue. The third thing is what I mentioned, and I believe this is most important, which is again partnerships. I think we cannot talk less about them. Partnerships, they relate to platforms, as we discussed. We have successful examples. Dr. Ma mentioned one of them from China. We have examples of the very large Middle East Green Initiative, which has been started by the Middle Eastern countries, covering a lot of, over 30 countries. Another example is the Riyadh Global Drought Resilience Partnership. Again, huge investments. The partners came together. We have started them successfully. So I think they can be easily replicated in the region as well, and MDBs have a role to play. So that would be one thing. The fourth thing which I would mention would be, and that is very specific to IDB and relates to what Dr. Ma was saying, that we have to mobilize the domestic capital. So one part of that is the taxonomy that Dr. Ma mentioned. The second part of it is the capital markets development themselves. And we believe Islamic finance is one niche area which is still very underdeveloped. So while it's 3% on the side of green finance, it's perhaps even less in the region on the Islamic finance market they can tap. And typically the Islamic finance investors, they are socially responsible. They want to invest in these projects. So the IDB is providing support in that, and I believe that is an area which can generate quick wins and significant returns. And lastly, while exceeding the time, which is the cooperation of knowledge sharing. Mr. Sanzar was mentioning that technologies have to be shared. And what can MDBs do to promote that? The bank has a reverse linkage initiative. We have a science and technology initiative, which I was discussing with Dr. Ma in the beginning. In that context, he was talking about what they are doing. And I said, why can't we partner together on that? We have a same initiative. We don't have to act in a fragmented manner. Why not work together on that? So that role can also be very effectively played by the MDBs. So I think I would end my remarks here. I've already taken 7 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. When I say 3 minutes, I know you will be taking 7 minutes. Thank you very much for the many, many good points. I wouldn't summarize immediately. Now, let me invite Catherine Ann Kabali, who is a climate change specialist from Climate Change and Sustainable Development Department of Asian Development Bank.
Thank you, Dr. Juma. Allow me first to say and thank the organizers for inviting the Asian Development Bank to this event and also to participate in this panel session. First, I'd like to begin by saying that climate risks in Central and West Asia are inherently transboundary. Like, for instance, when you say water stress, energy transition, land degradation, and even disaster exposure, these are challenges that we know that no single country can address. These are challenges that require regional solutions as well as collective investment pathways. We in ADB is committed to mobilizing $100 billion on climate finance by 2030. In Central and West Asia, our investment spans related to food security, integrated water resources management, modernized connectivity, and energy security. Allow me to highlight 3 important regional solutions for investments in Central Asia. So first, ADB through the Central Asia Regional Economic Platform, or CAREC program, is providing a trusted country-owned platform for shared priorities and practical regional initiatives. CAREC's 2 decades of experience has demonstrated how the dialogue as well as institutional coordination and investment preparation can translate to bankable projects across the region. A key milestone is that climate change is now a core pillar of the CAREC cooperation, which is embedded across energy, water, transport, and economic corridors. I would also like to highlight that the CAREC Climate Change Working Group is implementing the CAREC Climate Change Action Plan for 2025 to 2027, and also preparing pipelines of climate-smart investments for the regional climate change adaptation and integration. Some of these examples include, first, the Regional Risk Layer Disaster Relief Financing Program, which is for Kyrgyz Republic as well as Tajikistan. And then another project would be Almaty-Bishkek Economic Corridor Sustainable Transboundary River Enhancement and Adaptation Management, or the STREAM project. Another recent initiative would be the Caspian Green Energy Corridor. Here, we are highlighting that CAREC enables sequencing that are starting with policy as well as institutional reforms, and then moving towards preparation and upscaling of investments. I would like to secondly highlight that the CSPPF, or the Preparatory Fund under CAREC, supports the early stage project identification and screening. It also supports pre-feasibility as well as feasibility studies and restructuring of cross-border and multi-country investments that are otherwise difficult to prepare. Importantly, we would like to highlight that this preparatory fund is designed for regional projects, those that national mechanisms are not easily able to support alone. The third program, which was earlier mentioned, was the Glaciers to Farms Regional Program, or G2F. ADB's G2F program, co-financed by the Green Climate Funds, supports 9 countries, including 5 Central Asian countries. The G2F is an adaptation and resilience program, which provides a holistic framework to manage climate risk from glacier-fed river systems to downstream economic communities. The program integrates science, which informs planning and investment programming. This also relates to implementation of climate-responsive investments that are related to water monitoring, glacier monitoring, strengthening integrated water resources management, sustainable agricultural systems, as well as promoting climate-responsive social protection and health system to build resilience to increasing physical risks, especially in mountain regions. I would like to underscore that the central challenge in Central Asia is not the lack of ideas in terms of projects, but rather the lack of well-prepared bankable projects and a robust investment of pipeline. I have already mentioned about the CSPPF as well as the G2F program, which directly address this gap by strengthening first project preparation and second pipeline development. I remember that when we were preparing the G2F program, line of sight is very important for G2F, and we were able to offer in ADB the type of investments that would be necessary for the region. Mobilizing catalytic financing provides risk-tolerant capital that can crowd in additional sources of finance that would otherwise not invest, particularly in most climate and socially vulnerable sectors. Delivering the ambitions outlined today requires deep partnership among governments, IFIs who are present in this afternoon, as well as UN agencies and private sector. ADB stands ready to work with all the parties towards a more resilient, sustainable, and prosperous Central Asia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. We still have 4 speakers. For the remaining speakers, let me suggest that you focus more forward-looking on what you want to do in the future, and what are the bottlenecks or barriers you want to overcome. So let me now invite Vladimir Lee, who's the Deputy Chair of the Management Board at the Development Bank of Kazakhstan.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. For the successful implementation of green and sustainable projects, first of all, such projects must have a high level of institutional readiness. This primary requirement for obtaining potential concessional financing from special international organizations. In part, this work can be undertaken by regional development institutions. For example, as part of DPK's accreditation by GCF, we developed a number of internal documents such as an environmental and social policy, a gender policy, and etc. We believe what the work we have undertaken will help our green projects secure funding from GCF. The next key challenge is the bankability of green projects. As mentioned before, in Kazakhstan we have seen how it has been addressed in renewable energy projects for the conclusion of indexed PPA contracts. Their tariffs are linked to inflation or exchange rate movements. As a result, now the total installed capacity of renewable energy projects only in the DBK's portfolio has exceeded 850 megawatts, which accounts for approximately 27% of all operating renewable energy capacity in the country. It is necessary to exchange experience to develop and propose options for a similar solution for other green projects, not only for renewable energy projects. Another barrier is currency risk, which has been partially mitigated in renewable energy projects, but remains relevant for other green projects. Companies' revenues are generated in the national currency, while funding is mostly attracted from international special organizations in foreign currency, mostly in hard currency. For mitigate this risk, we believe that such projects could utilize blended financing, combining concessional financing from international organization in foreign currency with financing in the national currency from development institution or private financial companies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me now invite Evgeny Vinokurov, Vice Chairman and Chief Economist of Eurasian Development Bank.
Thank you. Could you please put my very short presentation on the screen? Dear UNDP and GCF representatives, thank you very much for inviting to this flagship event. Over the past decade, since the Paris Agreement, Central Asian countries have made some very serious progress. Of course, everybody knows about renewables, solar, wind, and hydro, but I would also like to highlight the progress made in water management, irrigation, and digitalization of water. In particular, over the last years, a lot has been made in the region, and that's very promising given that water is the most serious challenge in the region. For 20 years, the EDB supported sustainable development. Promoting sustainable finance in developing green financial instruments is the part of our 22-26 successful strategy. Our positive impact will now be even broader that Uzbekistan has joined our bank last month. Over the last 7 years, our cumulative green portfolio has tripled, reaching $2 billion. Half of this portfolio is renewable energy. Since 2015, we've invested more than $1 billion into building a 1.2 gigawatt of renewable generation capacity, hydro, solar, and wind. One of the key areas for regional cooperation is the transformation of the power sector. The growth of electricity consumption will double vis-a-vis the growth over the last 2 decades. It used to be 3% per year. Our estimate says that over the next 5 years, it'll be 5.5% per year. The new wave of growth is very energy intensive. I'm very deeply concerned about the current level of debate in the world and in the region as well. There is strong alienation. On the one side, there is green maximalism. Under the motto, renewables are a panacea. And on the other hand, there is conservative skepticism. Under the motto, renewables are a scam. We think that both extremes would lead to a dead end. We believe that the most practical applied approach would be the so-called, what we call the middle path strategy. And this is the best strategy for Central Asia, given its endowment. It includes the modernization of existing thermal power plants, deep modernization, development of renewable energy sources and energy storage systems, development of flexible capacity, I mean gas, for balancing the power system, recognition of the very positive role of nuclear energy, and that's happening in the region now, accelerate the construction of grid infrastructure. I cannot stress enough, financing grid infrastructure is more important now in Central Asia than financing generation, because the current grid infrastructure doesn't suffice anymore. And of course, a just transition for affected industries and people. This approach avoids extremes and provides better system reliability at 30% lower costs. And this approach also calls for regional cooperation. Trade in electric power, even the common electricity market, would help countries balance their intraday and seasonal differences and keep the system stable as renewables grow. We see strong potential to finance large-scale green projects, jointly with partners or in parallel with them. These are big, capital-intensive projects. They require coordinated investment efforts. Cooperation between governments, multilaterals, and climate funds is essential. Our institution can combine financial resources, project expertise, GR, importantly, technical assistance, and knowledge. EDB is currently financing a pre-feasibility study for the Su-Samur-Kokomirin. This is a large potential hydropower cascade in Kyrgyzstan. It could become a substantial regional cooperation project, and we welcome other international financial institutions to join. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chair. And now let me invite Charlie Morris, FCDO Economic Development Council and lead of Inclusive Green Fund for Central Asia.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to do my best to follow your instructions to keep this to time and on the specific announcements. But I do want to, first of all, very much thank UNDP for the organization of this session, along with GCS and the excellencies and ministers who are already here already. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the UK's perspective and some exciting projects that we'll be launching in Central Asia in the next few months. Just say I'm sitting amongst my very distinguished colleagues and directors from IFIs. Obviously, as people will have noticed, we are not an IFI ourselves. We're, of course, very interested stakeholders and shareholders in what they are doing, and we work very closely between Manila, London, and DC. But I'm largely going to leave the details of that activity to the experts around this table who know this much better. So today I want to talk about a very different bilateral and regional initiative that the UK government is going to be launching in Central Asia in the coming months. To take us back to the challenge, when it comes to climate finance, I think we've talked about a spectrum of applications in this session. Yes, of course, energy, large infrastructure gets, I think probably the majority of the attention. We've been looking at projects particularly to do with SMEs and SME finance, and that is entrepreneurs and early stage innovation in the green and climate space. Why do we think that's important? Because ultimately this is an economically growing, a region that is growing in population, and SMEs must be the engine of these economies to grow. They're also, when it comes to climate, the firms that deliver and implement the solutions to many of the areas across Central Asia, to households, to businesses, whether we're talking about distributed energy, irrigation, construction materials, energy efficiency, supply chains, cold chains. These are delivered by SMEs across countries, and they play a vital role in the backbone of these economies and our goals on climate finance. So what is it that the UK will be doing and launching in the coming months? We're very excited to announce that in the coming months we will be launching a specific investment fund, the Green Inclusive Growth Fund for early stage SMEs in Central Asia. This will be an early stage equity investment fund, an impact first early stage fund, which will provide patient risk capital to entrepreneurs to start and scale their businesses. It will be a regional fund for Central Asia, even domiciled at the Astana International Financial Center, focusing on job creation and raising green finance here in the region. I want to say one of the really exciting things about this project is we think this is going to be valuable not just because of the challenge we see that entrepreneurs face in terms of raising patient early stage finance for their businesses, for their innovations and ideas, if they don't have assets, if they have not got proven revenues, but it's also because of the potential that we see in Central Asia as to why this investment makes sense, with growing populations, growing economies, opportunities. And I think if anyone here who's spoken to business owners, young entrepreneurs across this region, they know the scale of ambition and innovation and passion for where they live and what they do. And that's why we're so excited to be partnering with them on that journey. I want to just end with a final comment about a kind of call for action, since I've got a captive audience here, which is that we've talked about pipeline and developing a bankable pipeline. Well, this applies with investment projects too for SMEs and for small businesses. And so I think more than ever, alongside the finance, providing and keeping along the path for sensible private sector reform for economies is immensely important, because that gives entrepreneurs the space in their economies to be able to innovate, to be able to contribute to their economies and grow. And I think on this, again, this is something that we've seen really fantastic progress in the region in the past 5 or 10 years, and that we hope to be partnering on the future. I will end their chair, and only to say I hope in the coming weeks we will share a firmer announcement and even more details about this in the coming months. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie. Looking forward to your announcement or your initiative. Now let's come to our final speaker for this session, Alexander Guerrier, who's the Regional Manager of GCF.
Thank you, Chalma. So I'm the last speaker today, so I try to be short. So following up on the discussion today, I would like to confirm that GSF is actively supporting financing of climate projects in this region. So 2 projects have been mentioned, one of Glaciers to Farm, and another one in Green Cities. So we have many more projects in the region, 42 projects that we're financing. The amount that we provided is $2.7 billion, with the co-financing attracted for those projects, $12.7 billion as co-financing. So from the discussion that I heard, and following up on this discussion, I actually can mention 2 roadblocks that again actually include in our discussion for this region for climate financing. So first, I would say high perceived investment risk by private investors, and another one is slow access to climate finance. Also is important. Many projects are seen as uncertain due to policy changes, currency risk, or new technologies, green technologies. And so private investors are often hesitant to commit their capital to their projects. So one of the key priorities of GSF is to mobilize private sector into this region by reducing those kind of risks. So we do this by using flexible financing tools such as conventional loans, equity, and guarantees, which improve risk-return profile for our climate projects. In simple terms, GSF takes in part the risks so that the private investor feel more comfortable investing into projects. But GSF doesn't do it alone. So it works through our strong partnership with banks, IFIs, with our national institutions, our direct access entities, of course, governments. So together, this ecosystem helps turn risk projects into investable opportunities, unlocking private finance at scale into climate sector. So this is all from my side. Thank you so much for organizing this session.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alexander. Now, given Thomas is away, I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes summarizing what I hear as interesting thoughts. So obviously, it's not going to be exhaustive. I took down like 20 ideas, and maybe I'll mention only 5 of them, which I thought might be interesting. to many of you taking these forwards. Now, first of all, I think the enthusiasm I see here is actually very impressive. We have so many senior government officials outlining policies and strong commitments to greening the economy. We have a lot of international financial institutions committing a lot of money already and efforts and innovation into the region, but we're still facing a lot of challenges. And the ones I hear is like lack of bankable projects, very high perceived risk, lack of capacity, lack of local green finance, lack of concessional money, and all of these. We can list like 20 items of the problem. But what to do? Let me sort of summarize, not necessarily my own, 4 or 5 ideas. One is IOs, when you lend to the countries, can you allocate a small chunk of money to do greening of the local financial system? Now, it doesn't have to be 20%. It may be only 2% of the money, yeah. And it's included in what you often call policy-based lending. And use this leverage to make the local financial system generating, instead of 3% of green money, generating 15% of green money. And the payback of that little investment is massive. And when you say co-financing, you had an example of $2 billion leveraging 12, right? And maybe, I guess, the 12 is not necessarily from local, right? You get a lot of other, IFI money coming into the 12. If you can leverage 12 local money, I think that's super. That's my hope, point number 1 of greening the local financial system. Sometimes, if you rely entirely on the local political pressure and capability, it's not enough. And you need to have an external push, for that to really jumpstart the process. The second idea is actually from our Kyrgyz minister. It's about regional platform. I think it's a hugely interesting idea because the Central Asian economies are not very large, right, compared with Chinese economy and so on. And you need to have interoperability. If you have a single green project database, which is made available to all financial institutions in the entire region and all international financial organizations, the access to the same database, I think would massively enhance the efficiency of identifying, labeling, and doing external verification and helping preparing, achieving maturity of these projects. And for that to work, you probably need to consider developing a regional taxonomy, one labeling tool of what is a green project, rather than 5 or 7 different labeling tools. Otherwise, it's going to be very costly to convert the label to each other, right? That's the second point of regional platform. The third idea is actually quite technical. I mentioned earlier that the on-lending from international development institutions are very important. This is essentially not so much about greening the central banks, it's greening the local banks. And China benefited from that. I think more than 12, 13 years ago, the little bit on lending from the World Bank, IFC, to a Chinese commercial bank. And they became the first equity bank, equator principle adopter in China. Then the practice spread to the entire banking system, right? Now we have hundreds of banks learning from this bank, which benefit from an on-lending process from international financial institutions. So that effect, I think, cannot be underestimated as well. And the other idea is technology being the enabler of bankable projects. As I said, if you pick the wrong technology, it's too expensive and it doesn't work, right? But there are increasingly more and more affordable technologies available for all over the world. And just in China, we have many, many, many of these technology databases. My personal work recent days is consolidating quite a few project database, green technology database, some earlier stage, some later, and some are very mature, some can be deployed on a larger scale, some can be done internationally. And one of the participants is Tencent, which is an AI company. They use actually AI tool to link all these green technology database, so anyone can search through the AI tool to the right technology in a much easier way than otherwise. So I think globally we need that kind of consortium. I think there are 100 green tech database already, but let's link it and make them more relevant to the region. And finally, it's capacity building. And at all levels, whether it's government developing taxonomy, or its financial institutions developing financial products, or its project level enhancing their bankability, you need a capacity building. And for that to be done in an organized, collaborative way, back a little more than 2 years ago, when I retired from co-chairing the G20 Sustainable Finance Working Group, I set up this CASI, Capacity Building Alliance of Sustainable Investment. And at that time, it was 8 founding members, including AIB, Hong Kong Monetary Authority, HSBC, and others. And now it's 72 institutional members of CASI. And we're co-developing training contents and disseminating our green finance, sustainable finance knowledge to developing country emerging markets. And last 2 years, we trained 9,000 people from 100 countries, mainly emerging market developing economy. In fact, tomorrow, one of my job is to host a CASI event together with the AIFC. And we are actually announcing the Russian version of the CASI learning programs. We currently have 15 modules, 15 courses on the CASI Academy, and they're now made in the local language. It will be announced tomorrow. So looking forward to your participation in using CASI contents to train your employees, your network, and your clients. So with that, let me thank again the government of Kazakhstan, the UNDP, and GCF for organizing this fantastic event, and thank all the speakers for great insight, and thank all of you in the audience for participation. Thank you.
specific importance. This year, Shanghai Cooperation Organization celebrates 25th anniversary. Over this time, the organization became the very reputable platform for the dialogue and cooperation. And this session is conducted upon the initiative of the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Mr. Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, speaks about the commitments of our country on strengthening the environmental cooperation. A specific importance is given to cooperation between UNEP and SCO. We work in partnership with UNEP, and this means new opportunities for exchange of knowledge, solutions. Today, it is important to move from general intentions to the joint specific actions. First of all, we speak about the development of environmental monitoring. We need to exchange data on air quality, land resource, land quality. This would allow us to mitigate risks and to have joint solutions. The other thing is promotion of green technologies and sustainable technologies. Our partnership will help in implementing more solutions in energy efficiency, waste treatment, and other areas. We need to adapt to climate change. Our region is already facing desertification, water deficit, worsening of water quality. That's why joint measures on protecting environmental system and protecting vulnerable communities is of specific importance. The other important area of our cooperation is ensuring water security and safety. I would like to note here the initiative of the head of state, Mr. Kassym